The explosion rocked the entire building. Glass shattered across the pristine marble floor of Thorne Industries' top-floor office as Maxwell Thorne slammed his fist onto his desk, sending his $10,000 crystal paperweight flying into the wall-to-wall, windows overlooking Manhattan. "Unacceptable," Maxwell roared, his tailored Tom Ford suit barely containing the rage emanating from his 6'2" frame. At 38, Maxwell Thorne had amassed a fortune of $18.6 billion through shrewd, some would say ruthless, business tactics. His steel-gray eyes bore into the trembling executive before him. "Mr. Thorne, we tried to warn the Davieses that their property would be better. I don't pay you to warn, Harris. I pay you to deliver results." Maxwell's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "That riverfront property is the keystone of the entire West Side development. Without it, we lose $300 million in projected revenue." Harris nervously adjusted his tie. "Sir, they've owned that bookstore for 40 years. It has sentimental—" "Sentiment doesn't build empires." Maxwell cut him off, turning to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled before him like a kingdom, his kingdom. "Offer them another $1 million. Everyone has a price." "We've already offered 5 times the property value." Maxwell smiled coldly. "Then perhaps it's time for more creative negotiations." As Harris scurried out, Maxwell's assistant Charlotte entered, unfazed by the broken glass. After 5 years working for him, little rattled her. "Your helicopter is ready, sir. The charity gala starts in an hour." Maxwell grimaced. "Remind me why I'm attending this waste of time." "Because donating to children's hospitals generates excellent PR, especially after that unpleasant business with the pension funds last quarter." Maxwell grabbed his overcoat. "Fine. But I'm leaving after 30 minutes. Scheduled dinner with Elise at Le Bernardin." Ms. Cartwright canceled again. She said, and I quote, "Tell Max when he remembers my birthday exists, I'll remember he exists." Maxwell rolled his eyes. Dating supermodels was exhausting. All the maintenance, none of the substance. Whatever. I'll dine alone. 20 minutes later, Maxwell's helicopter descended onto the rooftop of the Grand Plaza Hotel. The annual Children's Miracle Foundation Gala was the city's premier charity event, where the elite gathered to see and be seen while pretending to care about sick children. As Maxwell strode through the glittering ballroom, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Some nodded respectfully, others whispered behind champagne flutes. He knew what they called him. Maxwell Thorne, brilliant but brutal. The glacier, the man with everything and nothing. He didn't care. Feelings were inefficient. The event was predictably dull, plastic smiles, hollow conversations, and performative philanthropy. Maxwell checked his watch repeatedly, counting down the minutes until his self-imposed deadline. When the MC announced it was time for the silent auction, Maxwell seized his chance to escape. He handed his assistant a black credit card. "Bid on something suitably expensive, make sure they announce it." Heading for the exit, Maxwell was texting his driver when he collided with someone, hard. Hot liquid splashed across his $8,000 suit. "What the hell?" he snarled, looking up to find a young woman in a server's uniform, horror etched across her face. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, frantically dabbing at his jacket with a napkin. "I didn't see you. I was carrying these drinks and—" Maxwell grabbed her wrist. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs?" Instead of cowering, the woman met his gaze directly. Her eyes were an unusual amber color, bright with intelligence and completely unintimidated. "Probably more than I make in a year," she replied evenly. "But it's just fabric, and I said I was sorry." Maxwell blinked, momentarily stunned by her response. No one spoke to him this way. "Sage!" A harried event manager rushed over. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Thorne. She's new. We'll deduct the cleaning from her pay." "No, you won't," the woman, Sage, said firmly. "It was an accident." Maxwell found himself strangely captivated by this server's audacity. She was pretty in an unconventional way. Wild, curly hair hastily pinned back, freckles scattered across Her nose and those remarkable amber eyes that seemed to look right through his carefully constructed facade. "What's your name?" he demanded. "Sage Bennett. And you're Maxwell Thorne. Yes, I know who you are." There was something in her tone, not impressed, not afraid, almost disappointed. Before he could respond, a commotion erupted across the ballroom. Maxwell saw his assistant arguing with security. Whatever trivial crisis needed his attention could wait. But when he turned back, Sage Bennett had disappeared into the crowd. For the first time in years, Maxwell Thorne found himself thinking about someone other than himself, wondering about a woman who had spilled drinks on his suit and didn't seem to care who he was. Little did he know that this brief encounter would be the first crack in the ice surrounding his heart. 2 weeks after the gala incident, Maxwell Thorne was still thinking about the server with amber eyes. "Find her," he ordered Charlotte over breakfast at his penthouse. "The woman from the gala, Sage Bennett." Charlotte raised an eyebrow but knew better than to question. "May I ask why, sir?" "She ruined my favorite suit. I want to send her the cleaning bill." Maxwell lied smoothly. The truth was more unsettling. For 14 nights, those fearless amber eyes had interrupted his sleep. In meetings, he'd catch himself wondering what Sage Bennett would think of his latest acquisition. It was infuriating. 3 hours later, Charlotte placed a file on his desk. Sage Bennett, 29, literature PhD candidate at Columbia University. Works 3 jobs, bartending, catering, and mornings at a bookstore in Chelsea called Turning Pages. She paused. Interesting coincidence. The bookstore is owned by Arthur and Margaret Davies. Maxwell's head snapped up. The same Davises, refusing to sell for my West Side project? The very same. Maxwell smiled slowly. This was perfect. He could find out what made Sage Bennett tick and gather intelligence on the Davieses. Clear my afternoon schedule. An hour later, Maxwell's Bentley pulled up outside Turning Pages bookstore. It was exactly the kind of place he typically avoided. Small, old, cluttered with character rather than profit potential. A brass bell tinkled as he entered, the scent of old paper and fresh coffee enveloping him. The store was mostly empty, except for an elderly man arranging books, and there she was, Sage Bennett, perched on a ladder shelving books, her curly hair cascading down her back. She glanced down at the sound of the bell and nearly fell off the ladder when she saw him. "You!" She descended quickly. "What are you doing here? Did you track me down to bill me for that suit after all?" Maxwell was momentarily disarmed by her directness. Women typically simpered around him, hoping to access his wealth and influence. Sage looked at him like he was a puzzle she wasn't sure was worth solving. "I'm looking for a book," he replied smoothly. "In a bookstore? How original." Her eyes sparkled with something between amusement and suspicion. What kind of book would a man who has everything possibly need? The elderly man approached. "Sage, is this gentleman being helped?" "Mr. Davies, this is Maxwell Thorne." Sage's tone made the introduction sound like a warning. Arthur Davies's friendly expression chilled. "Mr. Thorne, I believe my wife and I have made our position clear through your representatives." Maxwell shifted uncomfortably. Being the villain was easy from his penthouse office. Face to face with the man whose life's work he was trying to demolish felt different. "I'm just here for a book," Maxwell said, surprising himself with the truth. "Really?" Sage crossed her arms. "What book?" Caught, Maxwell scanned the nearest shelf and spotted a familiar title. That one. To Kill a Mockingbird. A childhood favorite. Sage's expression softened slightly. "At least you have some taste." She pulled the leather-bound edition from the shelf. First edition, signed by Harper Lee, $18,000. "I'll take it," Maxwell said without hesitation. "Of course you will," Sage muttered, taking the book to the counter. As Mr. Davies rang up the purchase, Maxwell studied the quaint bookstore. Faded photographs covered one wall, the Davises through decades, their bookstore a constant backdrop. In one photo, he spotted a young girl with wild curly hair reading by the window. "Is that you?" he asked Sage. She followed his gaze and smiled genuinely for the first time. Yes, the Davises gave me a job when I was 16. They're the closest thing to parents I've had since my mom died. Her voice held a challenge. This place isn't just a property, Mr. Thorne. It's a home. The transaction complete, Maxwell found himself reluctant to leave. Have dinner with me, he blurted out. Sage looked stunned. Excuse me? Dinner? You and me? Tonight? Why would I do that? Maxwell, unused to having to persuade women, fumbled. I want to discuss literature? With the man trying to bulldoze this bookstore? Sage shook her head. I don't think so. I'll make you a deal, Maxwell said, business instincts kicking in. One dinner. If you still think I'm terrible afterward, I'll personally ensure Thorne Industries never bothers the Davises again. Mr. Davies chuckled. Take the deal, Sage. That's the best offer we've had from him yet. Sage narrowed her eyes. Fine. One dinner, but I choose the place. Agreed, Maxwell said, handing her his personal card. Text me the details. As he left, the bell tinkling behind him, Maxwell realized he was smiling, actually smiling, for the first time in months. That evening, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Donatello's Pizzeria, 8 p.m., dressed like a normal human being for once. Sage. Maxwell arrived at the tiny Italian restaurant in Brooklyn wearing the most casual clothes he owned, still a $500 designer sweater and tailored slacks. The restaurant was packed with families and couples, laughter echoing off the walls. Sage waved from a corner booth. She wore a simple green dress that made her amber eyes glow, her curly hair loose around her shoulders. For a moment, Maxwell forgot to breathe. You actually came, she said, sounding surprised as he slid into the booth. I always keep my appointments, Maxwell replied, looking around dubiously. This place has a health inspection certificate, right? Sage laughed. This is the best pizza in New York. The owner, Mario, sponsored my college scholarship. Throughout dinner, Maxwell discovered things about Sage that fascinated him. She was brilliant, writing her dissertation on how literature shapes moral identity. She was kind, greeting every staff member by name. And she challenged him constantly, questioning his business practices without fear. Why books? He asked between bites of surprisingly delicious pizza. Not exactly lucrative. Some things matter more than money, Sage said simply. Books saved me after my mom died. They showed me different ways of seeing the world. And what do you see when you look at me? Maxwell asked, surprising himself with his vulnerability. Sage studied him thoughtfully. Someone who's forgotten what matters. She leaned forward. Tell me something real, Maxwell. Not about your money or power. Something about you. No one had asked him that in years. After a long pause, Maxwell spoke softly. I was 9 when my father left. He took everything, emptied the bank accounts, left my mother with nothing. I promised myself I'd never be vulnerable like that again. Sage's eyes softened. So you built walls with money. They've served me well, Maxwell said defensively. Have they? Sage asked. You have $18 billion and you're having dinner with a stranger because... Why? Are you happy, Maxwell? The question hit him like a physical blow. Before he could formulate a response, the owner approached their table. Sage, I saved you cannoli, Mario exclaimed, placing a plate between them. As the evening continued, Maxwell found himself laughing genuinely for the first time in years. Walking Sage home, he felt strangely peaceful. Outside her modest apartment building, she turned to him. You survived dinner with the commoners, congratulations. I'd like to see you again, Maxwell said, the words escaping before he could analyze their business value. Sage tilted her head. Why? Maxwell had prepared sophisticated answers to any negotiation question, but faced with simple honesty, he had none. Because when I'm with you, he finally said, I remember who I wanted to be before I decided to become who I am. Sage stepped closer, her amber eyes searching his. For a breathless moment, Maxwell thought she might kiss him. Instead, she took his phone, typed something, and handed it back. That was almost human, Thorne. I'll think about it. As Maxwell watched her disappear into the building, he looked at his phone. She had entered her number under the contact name, the woman who said no. For the first time in decades, Maxwell Thorne had been denied something he wanted, and strangely, it only made him want it more. Over the next month, Maxwell Thorne's life underwent a subtle transformation. His staff noticed it first. Fewer, explosive outbursts, occasional thank yous, and most shockingly, he had started to learn their names. Charlotte nearly fainted when Maxwell asked about her son's baseball tournament. Are you feeling well, sir? She asked, hand hovering over the emergency contact button. Maxwell ignored her concern and focused on the revised West Side development. Plans spread across his desk. The new design preserved the existing riverfront, including Turning Page's bookstore, incorporating it as the cultural cornerstone of a revitalized neighborhood rather than demolishing it. His board of directors had been skeptical until Maxwell demonstrated how the revised plan would generate more sustainable long-term value and positive PR. It's still about profit, Maxwell had assured them, not mentioning how his meetings with Sage had shifted his perspective. They'd fallen into an unusual routine. Dinner twice a week, always at some hole-in-the-wall place Sage chose. Maxwell had eaten more street food in a month than in his entire previous life. She remained frustratingly unimpressed by his wealth, refusing his offers of expensive gifts or exclusive experiences. I don't need diamonds or private jets, she'd said. I'd rather have honest conversation. And conversation they had. Maxwell found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone about his childhood, his fears, his lonely climb to success. In return, Sage challenged his assumptions and opened his eyes to experiences beyond his privileged bubble. One Wednesday afternoon, Maxwell checked his watch impatiently. Sage was meeting him at his office to review his revised West Side proposal before he presented it to the Davises. When his assistant announced her arrival, Maxwell straightened his tie nervously. This mattered in ways he couldn't fully articulate. The door opened and Sage entered, looking out of place among the chrome and glass in her colorful vintage dress and worn leather satchel. Her eyes widened as she took in the panoramic views. So this is the throne room, she said, running her hand along his Italian marble desk. Very intimidating, is that the point? The point is success, Maxwell replied automatically, then caught himself. At least that's what I always thought. Sage's smile was knowing. And now? Before he could answer, the door burst open. Harris, his VP of development, rushed in carrying a tablet. Sir, we have a situation with the West Side project, he announced, then noticed Sage. Oh, sorry to interrupt your meeting. Maxwell caught the insinuation in Harris's tone and saw Sage stiffen. Ms. Bennett is consulting on the project, Maxwell said coldly. What's the situation? Harris swiped through his tablet. We've been approached by a competing developer. They're offering the Davises triple what we proposed for the bookstore property. Maxwell's stomach dropped. Who? Sterling Enterprises. Victor Sterling, Maxwell muttered. His oldest rival, the man who'd outbid him on his first major deal 20 years ago, creating a feud that had defined their careers. Sage studied his expression. This is a problem? Sterling will demolish the bookstore without hesitation, Maxwell explained. He knows how much I want this development. And how much do you want it? Sage asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them. A month ago, the answer would have been simple. Victory at any cost. Now, Maxwell found himself considering what that cost truly meant. Harris cleared his throat. Sir, if we match Sterling's offer, it would reduce projected profits by... Leave us, Maxwell ordered. When Harris had gone, he turned to Sage. I need to think. She approached and laid a hand on his arm. No, you need to feel. Maxwell stared at her. What's that supposed to mean? It means that some decisions shouldn't be made with spreadsheets, she said. What do you actually want, Maxwell? More billions? Another win against Sterling? Or something that might actually make you happy? Maxwell paced to the windows, gazing at the city below. I built all this by winning, Sage. It's who I am. No, she said firmly. It's what you do. Who you are is the man I've gotten to know these past weeks. Complicated, yes. Stubborn, definitely. But capable of growth. Capable of caring about something beyond the bottom line. Maxwell turned to find her closer than he expected, those amber eyes searching his. The bookstore matters to you, he said softly. Yes, but that's not why I'm here. She took a deep breath. I'm here because you matter to me too. Somehow, against all logic, the arrogant billionaire who spilled my tray of drinks has become important to me. Maxwell felt something within him shift, like ice breaking up after a long winter. Without thinking, he pulled her close and kissed her. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Sage whispered, "That wasn't in your business plan, was it?" Maxwell laughed, a free sound he barely recognized as his own. I'm improvising. 2 days later, Maxwell stood outside Turning Pages, bookstore, more nervous than before any billion-dollar negotiation. Inside, he could see the Davises and Sage waiting. This was it, the moment of truth. He pushed open the door, the familiar bell announcing his arrival. Mr. and Mrs. Davies, Maxwell began formally. I've come with a final proposal regarding your property. Margaret Davies crossed her arms. We've heard Sterling's offer, young man. Quite generous. I'm not here to outbid Sterling, Maxwell said, surprising them all. I'm here to offer you something different. He laid a document on the counter. This is the deed to this building, modified to include a perpetual protective covenant that prevents any owner, present or future, from altering its use as a bookstore. And this, he placed a second document beside it, is a minority ownership stake in Thorn Industries' West Side development, with guaranteed profits allocated to literacy programs of your choosing. Arthur Davies adjusted his glasses. I don't understand. I'm giving you the building, Mr. Davies. Free and clear. The bookstore stays exactly as it is, forever, and you become partners in developing the neighborhood around it, ensuring it remains the heart of the community. Margaret gasped. But what about your profits, your shareholders? Maxwell glanced at Sage, who was watching him with shining eyes. I've discovered recently that there are different ways to measure value. This bookstore is worth more to this community as it is than any luxury development I could build in its place. And Sterling? Arthur asked. Let him build elsewhere. I've realized I don't need to win every battle to be successful. Maxwell smiled. Sometimes the greater victory is finding what actually matters. As the Davieses embraced each other in disbelief, Sage approached Maxwell. That was quite a grand gesture, Thorn, she said, voice thick with emotion. What will your board say? They'll adapt, he replied confidently. The revised development will still be profitable, just differently so. He took her hand. I'm learning that change can be good. Does this mean you're officially a reformed billionaire? Sage teased, winding her arms around his neck. Reformed might be stretching it, Maxwell admitted, but definitely evolving, with the right teacher. 6 months later, Maxwell sat on a bench outside Turning Pages, watching as Sage conducted a children's reading hour through the window. The West Side development was underway with the bookstore as its crown jewel. The press had dubbed it Thorn's Transformation, both the project and the man behind it. His phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte. Board meeting in 30. New charity initiative approval needed. Maxwell smiled. The Maxwell Thorn Foundation for Literacy had been Sage's idea, using a portion of his vast fortune to build and preserve community bookstores in underserved neighborhoods. As if sensing his thoughts, Sage glanced up from her story circle and spotted him through the window. Her smile, warm and genuine, sent a now familiar warmth through his chest. When she emerged from the bookstore later, she settled beside him on the bench. Spying on me again, Mr. Thorne? Admiring, he corrected, pulling her close. You know, a wise woman once asked if I was happy. I didn't have an answer then. And now? Sage asked, her amber eyes bright in the afternoon sun. Now I know that happiness isn't something you acquire, Maxwell said. It's something you build, one choice at a time. He kissed her softly. And I've finally made the right ones. As they walked hand in hand along the riverfront, Maxwell Thorne, still a billionaire, still ambitious, but no longer defined solely by wealth and power, felt truly rich for the first time. Behind them, the bookstore stood as a testament to what they discovered together, that the most valuable things in life can't be bought, sold, or measured in dollars, only in moments, memories, and the courage to let love transform even the coldest of hearts. Maxwell and Sage married a year later in a ceremony held at Turning Pages, surrounded by books and their closest friends. The Davises served as honorary parents of the bride. Maxwell continued running Thorne Industries, though with a noticeably more balanced approach to business and life. The company's community-first development model became an industry standard, proving that profit and social good could coexist. Sage completed her PhD and divided her time between teaching literature at Columbia and running the Maxwell Thorne Foundation for Literacy, which established or saved over 200 independent bookstores across the country. Victor Sterling eventually partnered with Thorne Industries on several projects, discovering that collaboration sometimes yielded better results than competition. Charlotte received a substantial promotion and flexible hours to attend all of her son's baseball games. As for Turning Pages bookstore, it remained exactly as it had always been, a small haven of stories and possibilities, where a selfish billionaire had finally found something money couldn't buy, a life worth living and a love worth more than everything owned.